Hey, so I called this meeting for the Human Rights Commission on Tuesday, January 2nd to order at 5:33 p.m. We will start with roll call of all of the commissioners and we will start online first. And we'll go in order of district. So Commissioner Armilio, you're first.
Olivia Harmia, District.
And then going over to you, Commissioner Mayor Glenn.
Commissioner Mayor Glenn, District 5.
And then go ahead, Commissioner Bacon.
Hi, this is Everett Bacon. I believe I'm not in a district. I am an at-large member because of the Accessibility and Disability Advisory Commission that I am on, period. Sorry, thinking about texting.
And Commissioner Soberman.
Hi, good evening. Pamela Silverman, at-large representative. I'm keeping my camera off because I'm not well today.
Sorry to hear that.
And my
Okay,
camera's
Representative.
off because I'm not sure about the video quality. I'm at a hotel in Reno. So I'll come on and then I'll go out. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Commissioner Terry, District 4 present.
And Commissioner Lita, District 6 present.
And my name's Michelle Mooney, Equity Manager, Salt Lake City Mayor's Office.
And Maria Romero, Executive Assistant, Salt Lake City Mayor's Office.
And then we will move on to the guests from the public. So go ahead.
Nancy Cantor, Observer for League of Women Voters.
Okay, that could sound good. Okay, so we have everybody. Districts 1 and 2, just so we are all aware, they both ended their terms, Jason Wasso and Esther Stoll at the last Monday in December. So their positions will be getting filled and we still have District 7 vacant as well. So next we'll move into the approval and adoption of the minutes. Is there a motion on the floor to approve and adopt the November 2023 minutes?
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, moved by Commissioner Lita, seconded by Commissioner Bacon. All in favor, raise a virtual hand or your hand in person, or let us know you agree somehow.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I
are there any opposed? I'll put these hands down because I know they were, okay, perfect. Okay. So the minutes for November 2023 has been approved and adopted. We will now move into public comment. Do you have anything for us this month? No. Moving right along. Okay, we're gonna go into Human Rights Day post-event feedback, because as you know, as the event ends, now we start planning again for the next year and things that we can that we can get on top of ahead of time, like sponsorships. So I just want to open where I can make it more guided, but I just want to hear just general thoughts. Venue, locate, that's the same thing. The guests in attendance, the turnout, any pros, cons of anything that you all saw that we can work on. And I'll take note.
Well, I'll start out. I thought it was very, very well organized, and kudos to you and your staff, Maria, for putting on such a fine program. I thought it was very well orchestrated. It was a little long, but I don't think you could have done it as well in a shorter period of time. I thought the musical entertainment component was very interesting and different and culturally enlightening. So that was helpful. I thought it was helpful that the recipients didn't make speeches because it helped move it along. And it's really hard to regulate somebody if they're making a speech about, why they got appointed, and the introductions I thought were sufficient to provide a background for their awards. Food was great. I think the venue was a good venue to have it. There was enough space and it didn't feel vacant.
Mhm.
Sometimes if the venue is too large, you have enough crowd to feel vacant, and that can feel awkward. So I thought it was a good venue. And let's see, I thought it was an appropriate amount of time to socialize before the program actually began. So all in all, I thought it was a success.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts? Thinking of the Galavan in terms of venue, I think it was perfect. Enough space, but I think we could have outgrew that because I did have to turn some people away, but not knowing who wouldn't show up the day of, right? Who had their RSVP in, but then they
Yeah.
didn't end up showing up. And then we had a wait list, but how can we regulate that? But also now more people know about this event. And I think they're gonna look forward to it. So
Yeah, that this is Olivia Harmia speaking. So I thought, Michelle, y'all did amazing. Seriously, everything you and your team did, you all were simply great. The way you served the food, the way you set up the tables, it was fantastic. You did great. Whenever we were presenting at that is the one thing that I would say maybe we can work on. Maybe that flow of presenting the awards and where everybody's supposed to stand, and I think that is definitely something we can work on because that we did look a little disorganized with that. So I think that we can definitely improve.
Olivia, what do you think about, one of the things I thought was a little disruptive was the photographs that were taken of the awardees immediately after receiving the awards. What if instead of having the photographs taken then, we had a photographic session immediately after all of the presentations? In other words, after the program concludes, then we can get everybody together and take photographs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I think we can work on it throughout the year, as we get through it, but definitely having some sort of flow. So it's more seamless as people are coming up and getting their awards and who is standing where. So it doesn't just look like the commissioners are just kind of standing there. We don't know what we're doing there. And so it just looks a little bit more uniform and organized.
Mhm.
okay, what else do we have?
Okay, well, I think it's never too early to start on sponsorships.
Oh, yes.
I think we definitely need
For
to
sure, yeah.
start talking about sponsorships, not maybe now, but certainly by next meeting.
No, I would love to take all of your recommendations. I know Maria took note of the ones we mentioned in that last meeting, but I know that was at the top of everybody's head.
Right.
So maybe I'll send out an email and get a list going already.
Right, and we ought to contact the principal donor candidates and find out what their donor schedule is, because some of the foundations have a schedule and you have to meet their deadline or you just don't get in. And so we need to start that effort probably right now, at least finding out what the schedule is. And then making sure we calendar those events and get our requests out to the people that we think will sponsor. By the way, did Snell and Wilmer ever send their check?
So it was there and it was on so.
They got the money.
Yes. The
Okay,
check
that's
was
all,
there, it
that's
was
all I
just
wanted,
sitting
that's all I
on
was
Frank Richards'
concerned.
desk.
Yeah, okay, all
So
right.
it was sitting there, it was just tracked under other people's stuff, so that was a miscommunication on
Okay.
the department, so.
I don't want to, it's hard to tell if I can jump in or not, but
No,
I'm going
go
to jump
ahead.
in. I was just going to say, I think that I'm kind of going back a little bit to the actual content of what we did. And I think in place of having a keynote speaker or a panel or something like that, I think it would be really great to actually hear from the people who are getting the awards. There's a reason that, you know, that we're awarding them, they're doing work. And I think it's good for everybody in the community to be able to hear the kind of work that's going on. And so there could be a really specific kind of question that we ask them, or depending on what they focus on, you know, rather than just responding to getting an award, we could ask them to talk about the work that they're doing specifically. And maybe even then letting people at the tables talk to each other as well, rather than just, you know, having people up in front talking. So those are a couple of my thoughts.
Hey, Jen, how would you envision that happening?
Well, I mean, I think the focus would be, I mean, in, you know, doing some kind of welcoming, doing, you know, like maybe you know, introducing, as we did, all of the commissioners, and then go directly into, this is not with food in mind, so the food happens somehow, but then go directly into giving the awards, having enough time during that time for each person getting an award to respond to whatever it is that we asked them to respond to. And then after, we could say, you've heard all kinds of amazing examples of work being done, and we know many of you here are also doing work in the community. And then having a question that each person, that can be a point of discussion at the tables, so that people can hear about other kinds of work that's going on in the community. And that could take up the entire time, just doing that.
This is Pam. I love that idea. And I think what we could do is, thinking about our goal for this year of having like community dialogues, we could almost make this one like our ending community dialogue, and we could have the commissioners assigned to tables as facilitators, so that we had already prepped with the questions and thought about how to facilitate those conversations. So it could be a little more structured as part of it, and could function as, maybe we could facilitate conversation based on what we learn in these dialogues that we're going to be doing throughout the year, or something like, to tie it all together at the end of our year of dialogues. That might be something really cool to do.
You know, Pam, I really like that idea. Rather than have all the commissioners at their own little enclave, a table, of spreading them around the room. And then, now, I don't know, this starts to look more like a seminar than an awards presentation, but you could have a question that is asked of all the participants at each table. And then you could have someone basically just report to the group on how that table answered the question. Like a very broad question, such as, what in your opinion is the most pressing human rights issue facing the Salt Lake City community right now? And have a discussion, not very long, but have a discussion, and then have someone from the table just sort of report on that. That could be a whole presentation. It could probably take 20 minutes to half an hour as well. How does people feel about that? Does it feel a little bit too like, I don't know, going to school or something?
No, I think it's a great way to go. And I would actually argue that we have a really good chunk of time for that. I know that, you know, I've been you know, in spaces like this where you get, you know, in 20 minutes, you're going to only hear from the two people that are the most, you know, the most vocal. When, if we have a facilitated conversation, then we're going to be assured that everybody in that space has an opportunity to talk.
It was perfect, but I was like, just a little loud.
You just increase the volume?
Yeah, to hear them better on.
I see.
I don't know if you had trouble, so I was like, hold on.
I think, I think there's so much power. I mean, I know how important it is and how traditional it is for us to put someone up on a stage and say, you're amazing, say words. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's still a good thing. But I also recognize that there's so much power within our community, and the more that we can, leverage that and talk about it and give people, helping them build their own confidence in spaces like that, I think that can, like, if we want to have an impact, like a broader impact, I think that's a way of going about that.
So this was our first year, well, that at least from me being here. So in 2022, we did not have any keynote or panel. It was just performers. And yeah, I think it was just performers. Yeah, we had a cocktail hour.
Speeches though.
And yes, so the feedback on the speeches were, and I thought I sent you all an email, but I'll just go over it again. With the speeches of the awardees, that was out of my control. That was an executive order from my office that no one can have time to speak. So either way, the keynote and panel was gonna happen because that was the big part of the event, just being the 75th anniversary. At the time, I know Jason was really passionate about this. If we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the UN's declaration of this, why not have people from a global perspective who's doing global work, not just Salt Lake City? So we tried, it wasn't the best of everything. After everything had to happen, it kind of went downhill, but that was the big vision. We were trying to get speakers here in Utah that has done work with the UN, that has done global ambassadorship or something along that lines, but it was so hard to find people, especially for just the availability. It's the holidays and it's very hard. So we aren't stuck on a keynote or panel discussion. That was something unique. I do like the kind of, and I think Commissioner Mayor Glenn, you did this at one of your events, the living room conversations where we did talk among the table, because remember, even if we are running at a full board, there's 9 of you all. I can guarantee there'll be more than 9 tables. There was 20 this year. So you all can't be at every table. But although you all can be spread out. And then of course, my office as well. So this year was a unique year, just with the sensitivity of the climate and everything that we have going on. We just wanted to limit as much, I guess, conversation that will lead to, I guess, different feelings and emotions during this time. So this year was a very unique year with the awardees not being able to speak. I think what would be accepted is the specific question. As they're accepting the award, we ask them a specific question versus having them say whatever's on their mind. So that might be a good, I wrote that down. And then I do like what the combined idea was of the community dialogues. That is a great wrap up. That is what Human Rights Day should be about, a wrap up for not only the commission's year, but for just your year of work and everything we've been doing. So those can definitely be done.
Well, we could ask the same question of all the awardees. And what I'm thinking is something like, in your opinion, what was the most significant thing you did this past year? And what do you see as your most significant challenge in the coming year? And a really broad softball pitches. And there'll probably be different answers depending upon who the awardee is.
Just taking note of- Thank you.
I tend to agree with that. I know I wasn't there this year. The year before, we did have awardees go up and accept their award, and I think they got to say something a little bit, if I remember right, Michelle. Am I right there?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. But
They had about a minute or so.
yeah, and I think as long as we kept their time short, like maybe someone starts playing the Academy Award music if they're going on too long or something, I think that it's fine. That's the thing I would suggest. We keep people at a couple of minutes, no more than that.
Thank you for that feedback. One thing I do want to touch upon is The weekend, having things on the weekends is always a battle for some, not a battle for others. And in my time going to different awards events, I mean, the Living Color Gala, they had it on a Monday night. It was fairly successful. Yeah, they had the Grand America, so you're filling a whole room. So it did kind of like, we want to prevent, we probably won't go that big yet. But we might outgrow the Gallivan based on what I've been seeing. So we might need to look in different spaces, but this year, Human Rights Day is on a Tuesday. So, I mean, with your approval, of course, I would love to see us try and do a weeknight event. I think it will be accepted by my office heavily as well. Especially with Mayor Mendenhall's schedule too. Clearly, she had an election and of course, working a full-time job and running a campaign. I mean, that was just vacation time for her this year. However, I know in years past, sometimes some of our elected officials can't come if they get invited to the White House parties that happen and different White House engagements that happen in December. And I know we can't please everybody, but just to say we gave it a try, I would love to see what our turnout would be on a weeknight. Clearly my office is working, so we would probably spend the whole day setting up whatever we need to, and you all can come. It won't be at 5, clearly. It'll be like, what time do they usually start events? Probably like a 6:30 is what I've seen. But I just want to get your thoughts.
My thought on that is, it's a bit of a challenge. As you said, some people like it, some people don't like it. It's a bit of a challenge for people to try to coordinate dinner plans, especially with a family, and getting kids to bed if it's a school night, because it will be, and finding babysitters and the like, if you're doing them at an evening event. You know, it's 6 o'clock or 6:30, the dinner hour. For some people, it's past the dinner hour. For other people, the dinner hour hasn't started yet. Whereas doing it over the lunch hour, like we did this year, is pretty uniformly the lunch hour. So you're not gonna conflict with anything else.
Do you worry maybe about people's work schedules though, on a
Yeah.
weekday?
Usually it is celebrated on December 10th. This year was unique because we know we're in Utah. If we did it on a Sunday, let's just be realistic about the climate.
Well, I wouldn't do it on a Sunday.
Right, but this year it falls on a Tuesday and it traditionally the commission hosts it on.
I don't think that the actual day is sacrosanct. I think you can do it either the weekend before or the weekend after, if you want to do it on a weekend. So I don't think that for me, that's not a big issue. I think what's more important is the time of day that you do it and the day of the week on which you do it.
Okay, so what other thoughts? Because big events do happen on the weeknights, and for Human Rights Day, it's a free event, so it's free dinner, and people can bring their kids. There was never anything that this is a family-friendly event, like we would want.
If we're gonna serve dinner.
Yeah.
I think that would probably solve the mealtime issue.
There's always food.
Yeah.
So there's always a good
If we can,
substantial meal.
if we do dinner, we can do it on a weeknight and we can have, I guess the only conflict is I wouldn't want it to go too late if people have to get their kids to bed to go to school the next day.
So what do you
Yeah,
all
we
think?
need to, I agree. I like the weeknight idea, and I think, you know, a 6:30 to 8:30 or 6:30 to 9 at the latest seems logical.
Yeah, I would even say I wouldn't that 6 to 8,
6 to 8.
especially if we're doing dinner. And we could do dinner first, or
Of
maybe
course.
have the social hour or social half an hour, then do dinner around 6:30. And
Well, we
then
actually
have-
did the social hour around dinner at the first time when we did it over at the where what's that place called? Congresswoman Romero.
Yeah, it's a
or-
Sorensen
Yeah.
Unity Center. Yeah.
We actually did dinner like where people mingled and did the social hour while they're doing dinner, and people mingled and talked and stuff. I don't know, that seemed like it worked, but it probably wasn't as well attended as this one was. I don't know.
It probably doubled this year.
Okay,
And
that does
that
get
I can
crowded.
say is solely due to marketing. I don't think it mattered really on the because the feedback I got in the beginning of this year, oh, sorry, the beginning of last year, is that the weekend night was not a good turnout. So Sorensen having it on a Saturday night from what, 6 to 8, because people had like different plans, even some of, I think the commissioners were leaving, you know.
I
So
left
we tried
early,
it out, we
yeah.
tried. What was that?
I
Yep.
left early, yeah, I had another thing.
Yes, it was a hectic time, right, to do it on a weekend night. So what we compromised is, since it was on a weekend this year, we're gonna do a weekend lunch, and it worked out. But what I'm saying is, from city events, and anybody who's been to a few city events, like even Equality Utah's gala, when is it usually on, Commissioner Harmil? It's on a weeknight or weekday? I mean, sorry,
No,
weekend or?
It's on a
Weekend?
weekend, yeah, weekend, yeah.
I think that either a weeknight or this lunchtime on a Saturday, you know, you're always going to have a date. There's going to be conflicts. You're never going to find a date that works for everybody. I agree that like a Saturday night, unless we're doing more of like a gala type thing where it's like a party with alcohol and music and dancing and stuff, probably isn't a good idea. But you know, I wonder if the Saturday made it easier for some people who don't go out during the week as much, in terms of with the families, as David was talking about. But I think either of those could be well attended. And as long as we're serving food, like you're saying, the dinner or the lunch, I think will work. And you're never going to find that ideal date that works for everyone. Somebody's going to have a conflict. But if we get the date out early enough, people can put it in their calendars, especially obviously the award recipients.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so I'll just keep this note. Yeah, I think I want to, especially being the Salt Lake City Human Rights Day celebration. And I know we couldn't, I guess, control the last 2 years, but I think it will be important to have the mayor there this year, because it can't be a third year in a row without the mayor. And elected officials, I mean, we did have some people that were able to make it, but even on the council side, it was just by luck that Councilmember Pui ended up being available. So I know with their schedules too, we'll just have to see, but we can get this on, if we can get a date, then we can get that on their calendars, I mean, as soon as possible.
Can I make one?
Yeah, as soon as
suggestion?
we can establish it, we can get it on there, yeah.
Can I make one other suggestion about planning for that event? I think it would be good if we created a roster of who has received what awards when. So that we have a list and we don't repeat awardees that have already received the award. So that's number one. We ought to maintain some sort of spreadsheet of who got what awards in what years, ever since we've been doing this, going back. If it's available.
I only have 2019 and on, so we
Okay,
can have that
well,
list.
okay,
So
so at least then,
the repeat we had was back from 20,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
All right, that's number one. Number two, I think we ought to keep track of who the nominees were this year that didn't get the awards. And they should be top of mind this coming year as possible awardees. In other words, we had more candidates for the awards than we actually made awards. And we ought to keep track of that so that we have a pool of potential awardees that we can draw from.
And there were some really
We'll add
good
more to
candidates in
them.
there, yeah. There were some really good candidates.
Yeah, and we can add to that every year. Hopefully we will, but at least we'll have a pool of candidates that we can draw from.
Yeah.
And is that the way that you all want to do that? Or each year the application opens and so that information's it saves because it's all in Google Drive. But what are your thoughts on that? And are we I guess we need to formalize this system a little more. So now we know, okay, probably the ranked choice voting wasn't the best based on like there's changes every year. So what do you all envision? Do you want to just keep that poll, David, is what you're saying? And then we can open up the nominations again, or a whole new process?
I think just having knowing who has been nominated in the past, like before we make our voting and being able for all the commissioners to be able to access that, we can just be more mindful about who we're casting our vote to. So we don't
Okay.
need it necessarily just.
But I think what Michelle is asking is, do we want to have a pool of nominees? In other words, everyone who's going to get an award has to fill out an application. And people that were nominated this past year did that. Do we want to
Them
ask
to
them
do
to
it
do it
again.
again?
I think, yes, right?
Cause each
Does
year
it
they could do
always-
something
yeah.
more grand. You saw some of the responses were better than others, so I don't know. Most of the names weren't on it last year either.
No.
Maybe some of the organizations, but not really. It was all new people.
What I would envision
Okay.
is saying to those who were nominated last year, and we sent letters to everybody,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
they were
We
invited.
could invite them
Okay,
specifically to submit another application or
Yeah.
update their prior application, and then solicit new applications from people that are not on the list.
I like that idea. So just keeping them in the loop earlier.
Yeah, I think it's good to have everyone submit an application,
okay,
because they're, like you say, their community service may have improved or increased or
Right.
changed in some important way. Or maybe they're not interested in community service anymore.
and they get nominated, sorry, so if they're interested in an award, you have to get nominated.
Right.
Okay, so sometimes these people don't even know they're being nominated
Right,
for
yeah,
this.
right.
There was many who were like, what is this? I was like, oh, your colleague or somebody nominated you.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we have a list of who the nominators were.
yes, I keep track of all of that too.
So we can
Nominators,
certainly solicit a renewal
To them.
to them
Yeah.
of the application they submitted or the nomination they submitted this past year.
Okay. And then this year, again, like I said, this past year was a unique year. But I believe what we adopted in the minutes, January of 2023, was that we were gonna do 2 individual awards, 2 emerging leaders, and 2 community organizations. This year we did 3 and 3 for the individual and community organizations because of well, really, it was just based on how, I think everybody, that's why I think the best way is that this voting needs to be more unanimous in a way. And I know it's hard, everybody's different. I think maybe it'll help if we were running at a full commission, but really we only had 1 spot open at the time and it was still scattered. Like,
Well, my only criticism of the way we made decisions this
Yeah.
year was that it came, to me at least, it felt like right at the very end, with not a lot of time to discuss it as a commission and come to some uniform agreement on who the best candidates were. We didn't really have a discussion.
what do you all think because I think I told you all, I don't think we need to vote on the awardees in a public meeting. Cause I get what you meant. Like, we only have an hour and a half, you all are looking at this for the first time. And then you all can't discuss. But the thing is, what I'll have to follow up on is if we do meet just to get consensus on the awards offline. And it gives you all more privacy to talk about different people without it being, recorded. It's kind of, you're airing out people's, I don't know. Yeah, I don't,
Why don't you ask the city's legal counsel
I'll ask about the.
if we
forum.
can have an executive session
Okay,
to just consider
Yeah.
privately and candidly the nominees.
okay. And
And
then
that would
I
make it
guess-
easier. Then we could either have
I
a
guess-
Zoom.
I
Go
guess
ahead.
my only thing is, I kind of like the idea of us all voting independently, and whoever gets the most votes wins. It seems like that. I mean, that seems more democratic rather than us trying to convince the others to vote for one to make it more unanimous. I don't know. Because all of us are going to have very different thoughts and opinions of when we read the applications of what we like and what we are how we rank it.
right, so sorry, let me be more
Can I
clear.
ask a question?
I was trying to address your problem in making the selection.
So it's not that, I do want it to be democratic, but what happens is 2 people vote for this person, 2 people vote for this person, 2 people vote for this person. And then maybe one other. So how can I choose 2 people, you know, based
Yeah,
on how you voted, right? How can I choose 2 people and still be democratic knowing that there's 3 people with a tie? That's
So,
what didn't sit right with the chair and vice chair and myself when we had to get it through.
Michelle,
Yes.
that was my question because we had a lot of nominees and I wondered like, were the votes very split so that there wasn't really any one organization or person who got a majority of votes? And then I wondered if we could do kind of almost like they do for the, you know, like a ranked choice voting or a multi-voting or something to narrow them down, because I wondered if you could describe, but that sort of sounds like what you're saying, were the votes very spread out so that there weren't necessarily clear winners in some of the categories? How was the voting or the process from your end?
So the voting, so I think that's kind of why at the start of last year, we thought the ranked voting would work, but then we realized how many nominations we had and how large some of the nomination, like the answers, the responses were. So basically anybody that had 2, 2, and 2, that's why we had to award 3 individuals and 3 community organizations. That's the only thing that I saw was fair, because how can you say who's a top one? And I could have brought it back to you all, but I mean, let's be real, the meeting was over. It was really hard to get responses and we needed to get the awards done. So this year I'm putting it out there and you'll see on the agenda, our last meeting will be on November 12th. Again, it's happening on the 2nd Tuesday because it's an election year and the primary election. So I don't want you all meeting here on an election, especially the
Oh,
primary
no.
election.
Yeah.
So just so we're all clear, okay? So this is what I usually do. The first Tuesday in November is always gonna be election day. So I try to give you all that. So we can close nominations earlier since we're talking about this now. I can ask about the private session. And I don't think it has to be like what you were saying, Commissioner Bacon. It doesn't have to be like, oh, let's sway each other or
Yeah.
influence one another, but more so, okay, I'm saying that we went from 14 to 5 candidates, then I would all have you still in this space to be like, okay, then how are we gonna narrow this down? Until we really workshop this through. That's the only thing. It was really hard after I got your votes, which was great for the most part, but everybody had their opinions of why they chose one person over the other. Like, I was just so surprised that it came down to just Esther and Jason having to kind of say, okay, let's just award all 3 of them, because we were just crunched for time. So I just added on the 2 extra awards. So
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea, that we can narrow it down, and again, agree that we don't necessarily have to try to convince anybody. But I do think it's also helpful if anybody is familiar with the organization to give their own insight into that organization or that person. That may be unfair in some cases because there might be nominees that nobody is familiar with, but I certainly think if we can make the space for some discussion and then narrow it down that way, that'll be easier also on you. So that sounds like a great idea, Michelle.
okay, so I'll look into that. Is there anything else before we close? And you can always give me feedback. I'm just trying to get us through our agenda here. But right now I have just how the presentation of awards, sponsorship starting early. So I'll send out an email to you all and get your thoughts on that. Asking the awardees a specific question as they accept the award, using Human Rights Day as the last community dialogue, and having kind of like those living room conversations at the tables. If it's a weeknight option, then 6 to 8 or 6:30 to 8:30, but no later than that. And if it's on a weekend, a lunchtime. And then to ask about an executive session, for you all to kind of just discuss in private and see just what the legalities are with that. So did I wrap up everything? Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, you
So
you
next
did,
we'll
Michelle.
move
Good job.
into. I'm trying to be efficient here. So next we'll move into the HRC 2024 year overview. So it's still in the hands of my office, the report, but I'll pull it up here. But before I show the report, I do want to ask for any nominations for chair and vice chair. That is something that will help make this year smooth, and we have to do it in this meeting, because as you know, our next meeting won't be till March.
So
So,
I've been thinking about that and I have a suggestion.
okay, what suggestion?
We all have certain terms when our appointments expire.
Yes.
Okay. And I think it's also important to have a chair and vice chair whose terms don't expire at the same time, like happened last year.
And theirs didn't. Esther moved out of the city. So by, once you move out of the city,
Yeah.
she finishes up her term early. She would have been done this year,
Okay.
2020.
I was just thinking of saying the person whose term is the shortest should be the chair, and the next shortest, the vice chair. And then everybody just rotates through and becomes the chair once their term is up on rotation. So it's just based on your term. It's not based on, whether you're the most likable person or not. Everybody should get a chance to be the chair.
Okay, and I think that's all up to you all, right? I think at the beginning of last year, it ended up being Jason and Esther were really trying to pass it on, but everybody felt too new. But it's not, the chair and vice chair, I can tell you it is, I think it's fairly easy. Like, it's just an easier way of communicating in between. It's set for 2 meetings a month. However, most of the time we usually meet once a month if we, you all know, I don't like to have meetings, just to have meetings. But why we have a chair and vice chair in place is to just, if decisions do need to be made quicker, then we have that outlet. They also do get to review the applications and just get that through quick. Anything that needs to be done quicker goes through the chair and vice chair. So you're trusting those people to make decisions on your behalf, and everyone should get a chance, but I don't know with Commissioner Bacon, are you serving as chair again for ADC?
I am not. I would prefer not to commit to the chair of this commission, because I can't always be there in person for this one like I can the other one. So
Right.
this one's a little harder for me to be there in person.
Well, I was just asking to kind of get an idea, so.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be in person to be the chair. There's no reason why you can't chair the meeting via Zoom or in a virtual capacity.
So yes, for that, yes, that is something that. It's kind of hard, and we do wanna, so with this commission, it's unique, so we're probably gonna keep hybrid, but. I think it has been more effective when the chair is leading in person. So even for the Racial Equity and Policing Commission, if my chair and vice chair can't make it, I will lead the meetings, because we can't help what technical difficulties we'll face for that day. So for the most part, the chair or vice chair should come to the meetings in person.
Yeah,
Is what
that's
I've-
the way we do it for Accessibility and Disability Commission. I pretty much
Okay, I
make
wanted to make
that
sure, I was like,
yeah.
Everett,
Yeah.
you know.
I was pretty much always there. I mean, I may have missed one, but I think that was only because I was told not to come because they were doing renovations on the building and I couldn't get up there. So, but
Right.
yeah, for the most part, I think I was always there.
And the ADC meets in the daytime too, so that makes it sometimes easier.
A
for
lot
those
easier. Yeah.
On the 80.
Yeah.
So that is something to consider. So I don't think it's based on the most liked person. I think now with 5 people, right? Am I counting that? 6 people, we kind of have to see. But what I expect from you all, it's not like anything in additional. Like, you all will still be doing the same role. Everybody still has the same duties. The chair and vice chair are just like, I could quickly text Esther and Jason and be like, hey, what are your thoughts about this? Then it's just.
I'm curious to know if any of the other commissioners are interested in being chair or vice chair. Just so you can narrow it down a little bit.
Olivia's shaking her head.
Olivia tried it out for a few months.
Jen, what about you?
Thank you. You're very kind, David. I would, not yet. Let's put it that way.
David, what about you? Cause you're top of my mind right now.
You can put a nomination
I was
on.
trying to come up with a system that would eliminate me.
But then last year, you were like, we don't do, I remember your voice saying that, I was like, you were like, I think Esther and Jason should do it since they're doing it. So now I think all of you are qualified. It's really,
Yeah, I mean,
once you see
the
it.
way we did it when I was in CIP, basically we sort of entertained nominations and people could either
what I
nominate
meant.
themselves or
Yeah.
volunteer, I guess, or we could see if somebody gets nominated, and then we vote on it. So, I mean, that's kind of how we did it on CIP, to do the chair and vice chair.
That was my call for nominations. I think everybody's kind of going around.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of you, David, Commissioner Lita. That's who I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I mean, especially because of, I know that Jenny's been on the commission before, but she's newly returned and I still feel pretty new to the commission as well, whereas David, you've
I've
been
got
on-
all of 1 year under my belt. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I think my first meeting was December of last year. Or maybe November, but it's,
2022, so before we got into you and Olivia started the same year.
yeah, but I think it was like November,
Yeah,
Or
you didn't get the whole,
December.
you didn't get
So
that
I-
whole year.
barely been here a year.
David,
But you all know.
why did you just ask me to do it? I just barely. I think
Because I
you're
was
just
hoping
trying
you
to
would raise
avoid
your
it.
hand, Jen.
And the chair and vice chair, no, I'm so open to their ideas. Like if I'm not thinking clearly about something, that's what I go to the chair and vice chair.
So let me ask you, how long is this term, the sentence?
Oh, the year. So you serve the year.
Okay, it's just a year.
Yeah, you don't commit for your whole term. Each year, it just happened that, again, you guys, Jason and Esther, they would have loved to throw in
Okay,
the towel.
all right. Well, I won't turn down a nomination for a year.
A nomination,
I
and
won't-
you might like
David,
it.
if we nominate you, would you accept it? That's the question. If we were to
Yeah, I
if
would
I was
accept
to
it.
make a nomination,
Nominated.
you accept.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would accept it. if
Okay, then
nominated.
therefore I nominate David to be the chair.
I second.
Second, the nomination for Commissioner Lita for chair.
I move the nomination cease and David be elected by acclamation.
Okay, but there's still a vice.
Then who's gonna be the vice chair, Pamela?
There's
Well,
still
we're
a
just
vice
doing the chair.
open.
Do we need to vote on the nomination of David?
Yeah, I think you have to do each one
Yes,
separately.
let's vote on it after we get a nomination for vice chair, so we can vote on it.
Oh.
As the chair and
Okay.
vice chair together.
Okay.
So is there a
So
nomination?
Will, I nominate Will as
Oh.
vice chair. Since he was so kind to put my name in the pot.
Yeah,
Is that
I think Will would be fantastic too. I think he would be really good.
I second that one.
Oh,
see?
great.
See what it feels like?
I don't know if I guess wrong though.
Yeah, what are your concerns with it? When you see it, you'll be like,
I think I'm still getting my feet kind of dipped into
We're
this,
all
but so
there.
are we all.
We
I
all-
think if it's not, I mean, if you're saying it's not too much of a commitment, I just don't want to commit to something that I don't feel like I can follow through on, but if you're saying it's not that. That's just my concern, so.
so how I can see it, it might be slightly like easier. You all know Jason was pretty much at every meeting. So both of you are pretty much here in person. And remember, our meetings cut down by half. Like we don't, once you see at the end of the agenda, our meeting schedule, I'm like, wow, that looks just so, that doesn't mean our work is cut in half, but I think you all will just meet with me more regularly. Like I'll see you all more, and we plan it around your schedule.
Okay.
So I think we were meeting on Thursdays at noon or something, every other Thursday, so twice a month. And most of the times I would cancel, if I didn't need to meet with the chair and vice chair, I wouldn't. Other than that, they signed the letters of support and for new applicants, which you all serve 4-year terms. So any applicants coming in would be for District 7. The chair and vice chair reviews that because it usually is a quick turnaround.
Well, we also need districts 1 and 2, right?
So 1 and 2 is
Yeah.
going through the system, but.
Do we have candidates?
Yes.
Oh,
So those
good.
minutes were already, Esther and Jason reviewed that. That was their last outgoing.
Okay,
minute.
good,
So their
good.
positions are, fingers crossed, will be filled. It just needs to go through city council now.
Right, okay. Is that coming up this month in city council?
Yes, it should. We have
So
to wait for
hopefully
my
they'll
office
be
to
at the
review
March meeting.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
that's
the
good.
goal, for them to
Okay,
be,
that's good.
actually, and I would want them to be working in February already, you know?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes, so. That's pretty much it. I don't think, I mean. Olivia, do you have any thoughts on it? Did you feel like it was pretty straightforward? I just know your schedule got
It's
busy.
real, I mean, I would love to take either position, but I mean, and Will knows, like we're pretty busy, but and you know, I completely understand that too, Will, if you're hesitating, we do work a pretty high stressful job, especially with the legislative session coming up and whatnot. We tend to be all hands on board, or hands on deck, but it is pretty, I mean, Michelle is amazing at communicating. You know, she has had so much patience with me not replying to messages, and she still smiles at me, and you know, but she is amazing at letting you know, like, hey, you know, this is when we meet. Can you meet? And she's really good at keeping you on track and everything, and it is very low requirement stuff that you would have to do.
Well, if the commission would like to nominate me, I'm open to it.
I nominate Will
Okay,
before he changes his mind.
I have that down. If we're ready for the formal vote, so I will call for a motion to approve Commissioner David Lita as the chair and Commissioner Will Terry as the vice chair. Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Okay, is there a
I'll
second?
Second,
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Bacon, second by Commissioner Mayor Glenn. All in favor, say aye or raise your virtual hand if you're off.
I'm abstaining.
I'm
Aye.
abstaining.
Yo.
Okay, I vote yes on Will.
Okay. Okay, it's unanimous here, so thank you. Congratulations to our new chair and vice chair. It'll be an exciting year.
Congratulations.
It'll be an exciting year, so I'll touch base with you. I'll make a little group chat to see what's our best availability.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so now going into the priorities, now this is kind of what we plan. How do we want this year to look like? So I'm gonna pull this report up and see all of the things we have. Okay. Just to remind you all of what we have going on. And this hasn't been presented to city council, but when it is on the agenda for city council, I will make sure you all are aware, because I would love to have some of the commissioners come and attend that meeting. So this is 2023. So let's go forward into 2024. So continue working on the outstanding 2023 goals and priorities.
Can you blow that up?
Yes.
Good.
Hold on. Okay. How is that?
Let's start with the 2023.
Okay.
So, as I was saying before the meeting officially began, I'm willing to take on homelessness as my principal mission, so to speak, on behalf of the commission.
Okay, so you're willing to do homelessness.
And Pamela, I'm not gonna speak for you, but I do think, based on your background, you'd be a perfect candidate to take refugees and new Americans, if you're willing.
Yes, I'm willing, certainly, of course, but I guess I want to understand what that means because I had the impression we're not doing like the subcommittees this year. Is that correct? So I guess I would want to understand what that means to quote unquote take it on.
Yes, so what this looks like, and I believe I talked with you, Pamela, so the easy part of like homelessness and refugees and Americans is that we have a point person for this in the city. So David will work closely with Andrew Johnston. That's what I can see working out. And on the city council side, if anybody's passionate about that side, I would love that connection to happen. For you, Pamela, your point person will be Roxana, which you both have met, and she's excited to work with you. I know one of her biggest things is getting the refugee resource guide just out and to the public. So I know she's still working to edit that. So you would work closely with her on anything she kind of needs with that, but also you get behind the scenes of, oh, Roxana's working on some cool policy things, or same thing, Andrew's working on some cool policy things. You all have that connection. And then, of course, you bring it to the general meeting if we need to vote on anything, or if you want commissioner feedback on, let's say, like, hey, let's all review the refugee guide together and see, or I can also send that to you all ahead of time too. But that's kind of what whatever project you're working on with your point person, you kind of just run with that. Because as you all know, in our presentations last year, everybody has things they're working on. It's just a matter of how do we get you all in now. So we're working smarter. We're not thinking of these, I mean, if big grand projects come to life, then we can work on that. If we're missing something, like CEDAW came to life because we felt like we were missing gender equity in just all forms of the city. So that's something that became a policy and ordinance, but it takes a lot of work to get there. So right now, you guys I feel like are at the grassroots of things. I haven't heard of any big policies in those two realms yet, but if things do come up, then you're just that point. Yeah, contact person.
I would think it's a little more than that. I think.
Yes.
I think it's basically injecting yourself into the issue and really meeting with the people that are the decision makers, that are the policy makers, so that we have some influence on what happens in that realm. I don't think it's just being an observer.
Oh, yes, not an observer, but working with them one-on-one versus having the
Right.
subcommittees, and then it just didn't work well. Like, I feel like it was informative for some, but like homelessness subcommittee, that was just the participation in the Salt Lake Valley Commission to End Homelessness, which it could look a lot. So,
What are the other choices? Just because I can't really go look at something at the same
So,
time I'm listening.
Edwin, it's gentrification, it's CEDAW, and it's children and youth.
and we're open to, so this was last year's one. So if, I do not want to put something you're not passionate about on you, because like gentrification, I felt like we were pulling teeth. Like if no one's passionate about it, that's fine. We might get somebody on the commission who is, and then that would work closely with Thriving in Place.
Is there still stuff that needs to be done with Thriving in Place to gentrification?
I believe, I don't know where they are. They presented it, yeah.
HI, I mean.
We would have to. see.
Affordable housing initiative, there was whole, that affordable housing initiative, which is passed the commission, I mean, the council, was a response to gentrification.
Yeah. What about instead of a gentrification subcommittee, it's just affordable housing? Because gentrification is kind of a part of that.
So yes, that's what I'm saying. Don't worry about that.
I like the idea of creating, and that is something I would.
You're passionate about affordable housing? Okay, so let me take this off the screen really quickly, because I do want to know, I think that would be the easiest way to kind of,
Just go.
yes, because it's the first year we're doing this. So remember, let me get back up my notes that I needed. Because that's a good idea. You're passionate about affordable housing.
Yeah, I think that's something we should take up.
Where you're right in the city, so that's a perfect issue.
Okay. I think affordable housing.
Let me just write this down so my memory does not fail me. Okay. So affordable housing, and how about for this meeting, let's just focus on, tell me anywhere from 1 to 3 topics that you may be passionate about, and I will be in contact with you guys in the next week, giving you the people you need to know. Is that helpful? So, because I don't want you to be stuck, and CEDAW, that's something that my office is gonna take care of.
Okay,
That will be a whole nother task force.
okay, so we're just gonna say you.
Yeah, so CEDAW will be
CEDAW.
me, because that ordinance needs to, Damien, because he's the chief equity officer, and we'll have another task force for that, because that's gonna take a lot of different people.
Right,
So,
okay.
Commissioner Bacon, you want to go ahead and tell me what you're passionate about?
Well, of course, anything related to disability rights is something I'm always passionate about, but I'm kind of in that space with my other commission. I would think employment, equality in employment, or accessibility. Those two, or, access in general. Those two types of things I would definitely have interest in.
Okay, then we'll go right. Did you want to add on anything else to yours? Affordable housing, that's kind of more.
I'm just gonna stick, that's kind of my, homelessness would be my number two, but David.
Oh, it would be?
Yeah.
Okay,
But there's some crossovers there already. So.
Yeah,
okay.
a lot of those.
We'll go to, okay, Olivia, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to Commissioner Bacon, equal access to employment.
What about DEI, Olivia? What about taking that whole subject matter on?
Don't say that too loudly. That's like saying Voldemort right now. So
It is.
like,
It is. She is exactly right. I mean, have you noticed 11,000 jobs taken out, and many of them were DEI jobs in the tech world? It's unreal.
yeah, it's crazy. And actually, I was just looking right now. There's a bill that just got published for the coming session, House Bill 111, Employment Training Requirement Limitations, that it's seriously going to try to limit what employers in the state of Utah can do when it comes to DEI, where how they can like what they can train their employees on, what they could have to require their employees on. So DEI is it's a minefield right now.
That's
Yeah.
why you're perfect for it.
I mean, I can take it on for sure. I mean, that is pretty much what I do for work. I mean, I don't tell people it's DEI. I mean, but yeah, but yeah, it's basically what I do. So I can take that on as well.
Okay,
Well,
I
I think that's a really important human rights issue in the sense that if now the state has decided and the governor decided to outlaw DEI, how do we ensure that there is equity and inclusion? Like that it really is very concerning to me. And so I do think that's really a human rights issue that we should be keeping our eyes on for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's still very important. And of course we live in a state where this is occurring. There are still many other states in the country where DEI is not going through these things. So
Oh.
it's yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, DEI.
Yeah, but I think the challenge is to make sure that this, what I call anti-DEI movement doesn't turn into legitimate discrimination, or legitimizing discrimination, which it could easily morph into.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
we don't want to be inclusive, we want to be exclusive.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I hear you, Commissioner Lita. Yeah.
I think we just need to adopt the new language that's coming around, and that is, I'm sure many of you are familiar, but the dignity index, right? Things like that are, we just need to use those words and keep doing what we've been doing.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
so I want to, as we're thinking of these topics, right? I don't want them to be, I mean, some are broad, but I guess, like, I know homelessness is broad, but I know a contact person for that. So when you're talking about DEI, what specific things, because we know that's broad, right? Are we talking about, I mean, clearly we have the gender equity piece with CEDAW. But are we talking about race? Are we talking about, or how can we make it more just even, not even a one topic, but kind of more specific? Like what, in
Well-
terms of Salt Lake City, what
Yeah.
can the commission be in control of? Does that make sense? I'm trying to get you all in like one, yes, like affordable housing, that's so specific. I can literally anybody in, I feel like redevelopment, they'll all talk with you about that, thriving in place. I know those people, but with DEI,
You know, I love the idea. I know that is also your background, Michelle. So I love the idea of seeing how we as a Human Rights Commission can move forward in pushing DEI to be inclusive of all of the Salt Lake City citizens, of all the citizens in our city, and how we create inclusivity within the city and create belonging in the city. So I think that would be really cool, just to see what we could do there, and to see how what we could find there, and we can build a harmony within the city with topics that with DEI topics, without even using DEI per se, like using the acronym, but using the topics within it. And creating belonging in our city, which is huge. I even saw the other day, I landed in Salt Lake City this weekend. I visited my family over Christmas because I love torturing myself. And you know, as I was we landed, and then the Uber picked me up, and I was coming into the city, and then I saw that we had the the home of the Olympics thing, the 2002 thing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. For so many people, that creates belonging in Salt Lake City because they were here when that happened. So it got me thinking, that's really cool. It creates an identity in Salt Lake City, and it really makes me feel like this is my city. So what could we do within the city with DEI topics that could make our city feel more ours? So I don't know, that's something to explore.
That is something to explore, and I did write that down for you, Olivia, if that's okay. So instead of using the language DEI, I just put creating inclusivity and belonging in the city.
Yeah.
Whether that's working with my specific team. I'm also thinking of the Sister Cities Board. If you all never heard of the Sister Cities Board, they work with our sister cities in different countries, and they're kind of having, I went to their last meeting of the year in December. They're having kind of a hard time because they were here and then they weren't here for about, I think at least over a decade. Don't quote me on that, but they were gone for a while. So now they're getting back into it, and their house, Sister Cities, is housed under economic development. It makes sense for why, but also I could see the struggles they're going through. They're working with a lot of different human rights issues, and I asked them, would you want to see some overlap? So I think that would be a great place to even, like their meetings, how they're structured, they're updating on every single country they're working with. Each person has a
Do they
country.
have a full complement of members?
I think there are some people falling off, but they have their replacements. I think they are running at a full board. So there's some overlap there in terms of their work. Especially with the Olympics coming, they're trying to strengthen those relationships now. So it's not just like, oh, okay, Salt Lake City's back, because to get us on the map. They're trying to get us on the map. So that is a place of overlap too, in terms of.
Yeah, and like little things like that, like when I saw that, and even I remember before I moved into the city when I was still serving on active duty up at Hill Air Force Base, I loved coming into Salt Lake City because it felt different, and I always felt like I belonged here. I always felt like, yeah, this is our city. I feel like Salt Lake City is ours. Something like that. So something like that. It would be really
Okay.
cool if we could do something around DEI that could be inclusive of everybody, black, white, brown, no matter who you are, no matter what gender, anything. Like, this is our place, and we could create an inclusivity around that. That would be really cool.
Okay.
If we could figure out ways to get people to mingle more, to get people from different backgrounds and different cultures and different colors to share things in common, have common events, to, just interact with each other. I think people tend to get cliquish, and that creates isolation rather than inclusiveness. If we could figure out ways to mingle and coalesce these different groups, that would be helpful, I think.
And maybe those forums will help. So we'll see, starting in February, we're focusing on homelessness in not each month. We'll have up to 4. So I believe we agreed to at least do 2. If we're ambitious to do 3 or 4, then that would be good. But I think those dialogues could be a space too.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have to see how it goes, and
Absolutely.
okay.
Can I also just throw out that the Center for Belonging, the Center for Or opportunity and belonging, I think, economic opportunity.
Economic opportunity and belonging.
Economic opportunity and belonging, yeah.
Yeah, Zeman Zhao, like,
Z's, yeah.
that would be a great, like, I know she's thinking about those kinds of things and bringing folks together, and she'd be a great partner in
Yeah,
this.
and then there's another
Can you say it
organization
one more
that does a
time?
lot of, yeah, there's another organization that does, and they're a nonprofit. They do a lot of work around DEI as well. They're a little bit more covert. They don't use the term DEI. They're called Equality Utah, but they do a lot of work around that too. So maybe we could do something with them. Wow, nobody got it. I work at Equality.
Yeah, I did get it.
Nobody
I was
got
like,
it.
wait,
Wow,
are you trying
nobody-
to? Yes, I
Never
want
heard of
this
them,
to
Olivia.
be-
I've never heard of them, Olivia. I think that's a great suggestion for both of those. And when we start talking about planning the dialogues, I think identifying like partners to do it with, because obviously bringing people together or going to things that are already planned or like events that are already happening, and then trying to sort of piggyback on that is probably going to make them more successful and also reduce the amount of work on our end if we're doing a partnership with a group that also has a constituency.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jen, you're up next.
There we go. Okay, David's going into his chair role.
I'm moving this meeting right along here.
Move us along, move us along, move us along.
So I'll just throw out, I have my fingers in many pots in terms of this. So it maybe my value add is where we have a hole. I definitely have a lot of experience in the K-12 setting, but where I am right now, we and what I'm doing professionally, it really covers pretty much all of the lists that I've seen. We're doing work with at University Neighborhood Partners. And so I'm learning a lot. I know, partnerships, I know who's connected and doing work across the city in those areas. So maybe we just hold off and see. We're focusing a lot on environmental justice right now, which I think we brought up at one point. But anyway, so I'll be a filler about that.
I have you down for this K through 12 education. I just think, because perfect, Jennifer Newell, we have an education advisor. So I'm sure she's probably gonna have to figure out some things on her end. It'll be good to have a point person there. Also with the Racial Equity and Policing Committee, Commission, they do have a school safety subcommittee. So I know there's a bunch of overlap, and I don't think education is a human rights issue too, right? So.
Well, what about education and safety? Because there's a whole, the controversy about closing schools, that's something, of course, that comes up, and there's a, I think, an equity and human rights component of that. Certain communities seem to be getting targeted. Maybe the less vocal communities are being more easily targeted for school closures than the vocal communities. I think that's one of the reasons that the school board decided on the 4 schools that they did decide to close, because I think people in those particular communities were easier targets, less vocal, and that's, of course, not the way to make decisions. But so I think education and safety would be really good.
I'm
And that's in
passionate
your
about
wheelhouse.
education, so that works.
Now, the one thing we haven't really talked about tonight, that we did talk about last time we met, was somebody on this commission being responsible to interface with policymaking at the council level.
Oh,
Council, city policies, how those get formulated. Remember, we talked about injecting ourselves early into that process.
With the transmittals.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
so I'm hoping everybody has a part in that. As you're digging into different issues.
Okay.
Or we could even, like in the month, I know we have a forum, maybe in a month where we don't have a forum, we all can pick a part of the policies online. All of the policies are public. So
Right.
for us to kind of find holes in those things is like what Councilmember Wharton said. they kind of split up different parts of the page, the website, and was like, okay, you look through those policies and you find a hole to fill. And that's how they were able to find different anti-discrimination things that they pass, as well as CEDAW. So I hope everybody has a piece in the
Okay,
policy. This is what this commission is for. So I'm hoping everybody has a piece, but everybody just kind of has a wheelhouse they're
Focus
focusing.
piece.
Yes.
Right,
So everyone's not overwhelmed trying to do everything all at once.
okay.
With Pamela, I did want to give you an opportunity. Did you want anything else besides refugees and new Americans?
Um, you know, obviously that is my area that I work in. I would say the other area that I have a lot of interest or passion about is also in the affordable housing issue, just how unaffordable Salt Lake has become. I think that's a huge problem. I think about, you know, young people like my daughter's age, who, you know, just graduated from college, can barely afford to live here, won't be able to live in the city that she grew up in. And she's, you know, has a college education. So then how are we going to have a diverse city of people of all kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds if people can't afford to live here? So I think that's an issue I feel pretty strongly about as well.
Thank you, I got that down. So I will send a follow-up email on kind of what this looks like. But in the last 10 minutes, if not less, I would love for Commissioner Lita and Commissioner Mary Glenn to provide an update on the February Community Forum as it's presented. So far, because I know you.
Jen, do you wanna go first?
Sure, I'm happy to. We had a great meeting with the West Side Coalition. And some other folks are very excited to partner with us. So we've got great partners there. We talked about, you know, a couple of different kinds of scenarios of thinking about it in two ways. One around an education opportunity. So providing, you know, having a panel or experts or people who really understand the issues to have an opportunity to share their knowledge with the community, but then also to make sure that we are hearing voices of people who are experiencing homelessness and actually having them talk about what their experiences have been, really reaching out to community members or, you know, people experiencing homelessness and making sure that they are present at these meetings, and then doing dialogues that include people from people experiencing homelessness at a table with people, you know, with community members, so that there's an opportunity for that dialogue to be heard from everybody to talk about it. My assignment was to reach out to a couple of people, potential partners, and I reached out to the executive director of Living Room Conversations. She lives here in Utah and she's excited to partner with us. And then I also reached out to the Utah Humanities Council. Jody Graham is her name. She's excited to partner with us as well. So I'm inviting them to the next meeting, which is on January 9th, and they will become part of the planning committee. What did I leave out, David?
No, that's terrific. So the two components, education and then listening, the community dialogue. We have a tentative location. I think it's Glendale Junior High.
Oh, yeah.
We have a tentative date, February 24th from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. It's a Saturday afternoon. That was the date, by the way, that the West Side Coalition members thought would work the best for residents in the community. And I think in that regard, we need to defer to them. They know their constituents, I think, better than we do. My assignment was to look for panel members. And Andrew Johnston with the city has agreed to participate. The chairman of the Community Action Board at the 4th Street Clinic, a guy by the name of Kevin, who is homeless, has agreed to participate on the panel. I'm going to reach out later this week to members of the Homelessness Council, which is a state-run organization, including Wayne Niederhauser, and see if I can get a few members from that group to participate. And then I'm gonna lean on Kevin to see if he can find other members of the homeless community that would be willing to show up at this forum and participate in these group sessions. So, and then other people on this coalition were working on food. Someone else was working on location. So what I liked about it is everyone had a specific task and everybody's been following up on it. And like Jen said, our next meeting is, I think it's gonna be in person, isn't it, Jen? On the 9th? Yeah, in person on the 9th,
Yeah.
which is next week.
And I'll just throw out there, sorry, Pam, you can jump in right after. I was just gonna say, we are also planning to make sure that there's some kind of stipend or something that can go to the folks that participate, the people experiencing homelessness as participants, so that they get some kind of acknowledgement for their expertise and their lived experience.
So first of all, thank you so much for all your work. This sounds really incredible. So I have two questions. One is, how long do you envision the panel to be, just so that we have the balance of time to really have listening session and not have it be, you know, that people are there to listen to experts, quote unquote, as opposed to actually contributing their opinions, because I know we did frame these as listening sessions. So that's my first question. And then I'll just put my second question is, what do you need from us in terms of helping move this forward, and what assistance do you need from the commission? And then I'll mute myself for the answers.
Okay, so let me address the first question. We talked about that at our initial meeting, Pam. And we thought we would break up this 2-hour session into 2 one-hour sessions. The first one being the educational component, and the second one being the dialogue and listening session. And we talked about also trying to have a third session, which would discuss proposed solutions to the issues. And there are lots of issues surrounding homelessness, from sanitation to unsightliness to treating people with respect and dignity, et cetera. But we concluded that it would be enough to just have the education and the dialogue. And then if that turned out to be productive, we would then have a second forum where we would talk about possible solutions. So that's how, I hope that answers your question, Pamela. And from what we need from the commission, right now, I can't say, I don't know, support, emotional support, if nothing else.
What about with like the outreach efforts? I know you talked a little bit about that too, the unsheltered communities.
Right, I mean, I'm not sure how we reach out to the unsheltered community.
What they wear the yellow jackets. They're like this ambassadors. Is that, am I using
Yeah.
the word?
Yeah, yeah.
Are they?
And
people
the
that-
other,
I can
yeah,
follow up
those
with-
downtown folks that the community ambassadors, sorry if I interrupted you, Will, it's so hard to tell.
Oh,
The
you're
other
fine.
thought I had is, you know, I volunteer with the Food Justice Coalition, and they provide meals to people experiencing homelessness. So if we have like, or if we're gonna have a flyer or some way, they might be willing to do it on their social media and help promote it when they're distributing meals within homeless community members. So I can reach out to them and connect with them on how they might help us with the outreach, since they're working directly with homeless individuals and on a daily basis.
And you know, Pamela, you just gave me an idea. Salt Lake City, or maybe it's the county, I'm not sure which, is participating in the national point in time count, which is later this month. And if we could get the volunteers, I'm one of those volunteers, if we could get the volunteers to, as they're doing the point in count, to mention that this forum is going to happen and where it's going to happen, that might be another way to publicize it.
Yeah.
I would love to help in any outreach efforts, like Pamela, if we had some flyers made and then like I would love to help distribute some of them at the, you just mentioned the name, the Food Justice Coalition events.
And also if we could take the flyer and, I mean, they do a lot of social media and like, actually homeless folks use their social media to find out where the meals are. And like they had a Christmas dinner and they advertise on social media. If we can have an electronic version of the flyer, I bet they can put it up on their social media as well. So we can have print and digital. That would be great. So I don't know if
I
who
think
has the
you guys
capacity
just
to make
answered
a
the
flyer.
question. If the commission in general can help with promoting it and publicizing it, that would be great.
For sure. Was there gonna be a flyer? Was somebody gonna work on that? Like some sort of outreach materials? Or
Yeah, I
who-
think that's one of the things we're talking about on the 9th, Pamela, is next steps, which will include publication. Or how we get the word out.
Yes. And
Great. So then, yeah, we can definitely support getting it out, the word out.
since the meeting's in person, I will be out of town on that day, but can you all let me know what they see the mayor's office role in there?
Sure.
Because if we need any budgetary items, I would love to see how we can help and support.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I know the HRC doesn't really have a budget, but of course,
No.
like Councilmember Wharton said, we just never asked. So
Yeah.
if this is something that needs support, please, I don't know what, I'm reading the notes now that they sent out. It seems like the West Side Coalition may have a budget, but.
They have a small budget.
Okay,
We got down in the weeds about how we were gonna pay for food
okay,
and we didn't really resolve it.
okay, let
But
me
but
know.
the mayor's office could be very helpful in that regard.
Yes, and I'm hoping, I mean, the Human Rights Commission is under the mayor's office, so I think I just have to get this information to my boss. So now that I have a clear idea, I'll take this to him.
Yeah, did Jake send you the minutes?
Yes, but have
Okay.
you guys had any other email communications or that was
I
it?
haven't
I'm on
seen-
it now, right?
Oh, I hope so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, yes.
But I haven't seen anything other than the minutes.
Okay, so I'll show my office the ones from the December 17th meeting, and then once on the 9th, once things are more finalized, we can get the ball rolling on. I mean, we even have a graphic designer too that can make the flyer. So I just don't want to pull away from if West Side Coalition has their own.
Well, now that I know
Yeah.
that that's an option, well, I'll bring it up at
Yes.
the meeting.
The city has resources, just let them know that. We just need to know what we need, and if we could do it, I'm sure they'll do it.
Great.
I would love to join the meeting and just be kind of like a.
Sure, well, come, it's, where is it? Let me-
It was open to everyone.
Yeah, no, we're just not,
Or you might have.
not trying to
been-
exclude anybody.
Might have not been at that meeting. Okay, so I know we're at time. Does anybody else, before we adjourn, have
To be
anything
at
for the good of?
Neighborhood house.
Okay.
Nothing? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Neighborhood
I'll make
house.
that motion.
From 3 to 5.
Okay.
Okay, so.
No motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Sure.
Oh,
Commissioner.
okay.
Yeah,
Any second, I'm sure you all second it.
Second, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you all
second.
for a great meeting. I will send up a follow-up email with all of these and the minutes as well. So thank you all for your time and I appreciate every single one of you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Michelle.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Happy
New
New
Year,
Year.
everybody.
Stop. Oh, yes,
It
yes.
says, are you sure you want to record to the cloud?
Stop recording, so yes.
Okay.